Only one in every 20,000 lobster eggs survives in the wild to adulthood. Hi, I'm Curly Steve, and I'm searching for a greener room. Ben Marshall swapped a life of rock and roll for marine conservation and now leads production at the National Lobster Hatchery in Cornwall. He's dedicated to giving lobsters a fighting chance in our seas. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Very excited to have you on this afternoon. But let's rewind for a minute. Can you tell me, what was your life like as a kid and what happened back then?
Well, I'm originally from a small mill town outside of Manchester called Ashton-under-Lyne, which is where I grew up. And went to school, went to college, luckily for my early interest in nature, which was always there, even as a child, great places like the Natural History Museum and things like that. They cultivated that interest and went to college. Actually went to college to get into paleontology, and basically my A-levels were too hard.
Okay, so me being really intelligent, what's paleontology?
The study of prehistoric life.
Oh, okay, interesting.
That kind of stuff. So that was my original thing I tried to pursue as a career when I was going in, from high school into sixth form, so doing appropriate A-levels. But yeah, it was the wrong time in my life,
right,
to be focused, on that sort of stuff. And the part-time job while I was at sixth form was working in a music venue, which was a great little music venue, again on the outskirts of Manchester, called the Witchwood.
Okay.
And it was just one of these classic little venues. It had loads of bands had played there that went on to bigger and better things, and loads of bands that had been to bigger and better things and were now on the way down also played there. And that just evolved into my sort of career for 6-7 years. Started working there part-time. I was at college. College didn't go so well, worked there full-time. And we eventually ended up, me and my brother and the manager of the place at the time ended up buying it off the owners.
Amazing.
So the guys who owned it had a big pub chain and were offloading some of the smaller non-branded venues. So we took it over and ran that quite successfully for a few years.
As a live music venue?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And you play a bit of music as well, don't you?
Yeah. I'm a drummer. And in that period of time, I was actually a drummer in a Metallica tribute band for several years.
Amazing.
Which was good fun. Gets you around the country, as well as keeping in with, working in that environment. And I don't know, it was just after a certain period of time. I mean, let's say when I was younger, that the lifestyle that comes with working in those kind of places was very appealing. But as you get older, you just run out of steam. It was tiring, doing 2:00 finishes, getting the place open again, dealing with bands. Because we used to have bands on 7 days a week there, of all different genres, different types.
What year was this?
Yeah, we're going back to 99 to 2004-05.
So live music venues were sort of in effect back then, weren't they?
Yeah.
They were going on.
Yeah. You could put 3 local bands on and get 200 people in every time. There was, it's a different, people just consume media in a different way, I think, these days. So getting people out to see, particularly on signed acts, I think is more tricky these days. And I think you're going to, they say, don't they now, where are all the bands? There's a lot of artists coming through, solo people, but the bands are slowed down on coming through the industry.
Right.
And I think a lot of that is they're just less frequented local venues. And people just, we live in a different society now, don't we? It's like people don't want to go out on a Wednesday night and get 10 pints down them and watch a load of unsigned acts, but they were great nights. And that's how these bands cut their teeth, So I think we'll see the effect of that in the next 10 years, I think.
I think as well, when the laws changed with the sort of 24-hour opening, the bands started coming on a lot later. But back in the day, you were able to go out at 7 in the evening.
Your first bands are on at 8.
Tucked up in bed by 11,
1
o'clock
at the latest. But now, I mean, I've got a funny story about that. Like, it was only well, I'm mid-40s now. It's a couple of years ago, me and my mate were in Newquay. We'd gone out for a few beers. We'd had a great time, you know, have something to eat, a few beers. And we were just sat outside, like, lamenting the reality of the situation. Like, oh, man, Newquay used to be cracking. There was music on. You know, you could go to, there'd be 2 or 3 pubs that have bands on. What's happened to the place? And as our taxi pulled up, the band arrived in their van. And then you think, oh, man, we're going home before the band have even arrived. How things move on.
Absolutely. So that, how did that draw to a close? And was that when you came down south?
Yeah. So basically that business got to a point where we could either push on and carry on as it started those challenging times of getting acts in and so on, or go different, you know, go different ways. And, you know, it was a natural break for the 3 of us that were involved in that business, that just were like, you know, yeah, let's move on. And one of my things in my mind at the time was, this is great fun, but you wanted to be involved in nature when you were a kid. When you were going to college, even, that was still part of your decision making. And this evolved, that music thing evolved for a number of years, and it was great fun, but it was like, man, get back on track.
Yeah, for sure.
Get back on track. Do what you.
That's not paleontology, man.
No, exactly. Do you know what I mean? But it sucks you in. You're in your early 20s. You know, this is great. You can drink at work. You're fraternizing with bands and finding the requests for their rider, and you know what I mean. So it was all good fun, but you know, as I was getting into my late 20s, you're like, come on, let's get focused in and back onto what you wanted to do and make an impact in some way, positive impact. You know, because nature is so important to me, and being in it, whether it's a forest, a poppy field, out at sea, looking in rock pools, and it just makes you, I think, feel alive, because especially in the modern world, I think so much of what we do is not real. And I know that sounds crazy, but you can be sat at home sometimes with the kids and my wife and everything. I love them all dearly, but when everyone's engaged in their other things and they're still talking to their mates and FaceTiming and all this, the house is actually quite quiet.
Right.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So nature is like, yeah, that's real. That got wet. Oh, that stung me. You know, you're in it. You're really there.
Absolutely.
And that's one of the big factors I like. You know, sometimes of an evening, I'll just sit in the garden and watch the bats and look at the trees.
It's a beautiful thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah, just be present.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I eventually got back into that.
So you left the music scene.
We left the music scene, and me and my now wife were quite recently together at that time, and she'd left a job. She was not, you know, she wasn't particularly interested. She was working for a bank at the time, and we were like, you know, let's just go on a holiday. We'll go and do a season down Cornwall. And that was literally it. We didn't move. We didn't go, right, we're moving to Cornwall. It's like, let's go do a season and figure out what we want to do.
What year was that?
2005, 6.
I think that was when I met you, wasn't it?
Yeah, we met you. Yeah. That's what I mean. I've known you pretty much the whole time. Yeah, I remember, like, Karina met you early on, and I knew you from longboarding on your head fame. Which
we don't like to talk about.
It's still a skill, and I think we should talk about that some more. But yeah, so that was about them. So we came down. We were working campsite jobs, living in the static. Great, having a great time. Brought a bag of clothes each. There was no intent to stay, and it's just so much more. You're so much more in contact with nature, and just walking on the beach. Like, people don't appreciate it, because, you know, when we all live around here now, and it's amazing. But, you know, you go back to Manchester and walk around with your shoes off and things like that.
People think you're a weirdo.
People throw garbage at you, man. It's like you know. So,
and I think what you were saying there just struck a nerve, because it's so when you live amongst it, it's so easy to just take it for granted, isn't it? And I remember I worked for a few minutes as a taxi driver, and I'd drive from the airport down the hill at Watergate Bay, and the people in the back would be super excited about the view, and I'd sort of go, Oh yeah. That's
it's
a
nice,
that's
isn't
a
it?
lovely view. That.
Yeah, and sometimes it takes that
Yeah.
that external point of view to make you really appreciate.
Or someone will say, "Cool,
what's
look at
normal."
that sunset," and you
Well-
look over and you go, "Oh yeah, I hadn't noticed that for the last half an hour." That
We all remember the crazy that was COVID, and I remember hearing something that really made me think about that, which was, do you remember Madonna
yeah.
was criticized because she was moaning about being locked away in her house.
Mm-hmm.
And then they were showing her house with this massive swimming pool,
Right.
sauna complex,
Yeah.
tennis courts, in-house cinema, and all this. And the world was just like, what's she on about?
Yeah, it looks great.
It's like a resort I'd go to, and she lives there, but it's her reality.
Yeah.
And she was trapped in that day, like we all were.
Yeah.
So
our reality
you can't
becomes
judge
the normal, doesn't
other
it?
people's points of view. That's her reality. Like we're saying about the people with the view when you were taxi driving, and wow, what an amazing view! How great is that? And you're like, it's there every day.
Yeah. So you came to Cornwall.
Yeah.
And what happened then?
So we came to Cornwall. We were doing the summer jobs, and then I ended up. Cornwall College had recently opened, and they were offering courses that I was interested in.
Mm-hmm.
They would at the time they were doing different stuff like wildlife media courses, marine conservation, and that kind of stuff. And I was like, I'll have a look into that. So I'd done enough at sixth form when I was looking into getting into paleontology to have enough that I didn't have to, go back and do any entrance stuff.
Okay.
And I could just say, right, okay, yeah, you can start. We suggest you do the foundation degree first and then up it at the end. So that's what I did. So that would be what, 2006 to about 2000. Yeah. So 2006 to 2008, I did the foundation degree. And again, similar situation as when it was the music venue stuff. I'd got a part-time job at the aquarium while I was studying, which then transferred into full-time after I'd finished the foundation degree. Now, I'd always intended to top that up to be the full degree, but it was like, well, I'm getting relevant experience. My wife was pregnant at the time, so it's like, maybe I better have a job.
Yeah, it's quite important.
It's quite important at the time. So I thought I'll do this job because it's good experience. You're in the industry, you've got a foot in the door. And did that for a couple more years before I then topped up the degree. So I thought the best time to do that would be when the second kid arrived.
Excellent.
So I was working full time, 2 kids under 3 doing a degree.
Oh, that kept you on your toes.
That kept me on my toes. And I think that's when the beard went grey.
Yeah.
Definitely. But yeah, so throughout that whole period, I was doing all that. It was quite a stressful period. And then the aquarium, again, you'd been there some time. I was like, yeah, it's done. I think.
What were you doing at the aquarium?
I was an aquarist, which is basically a water-based zookeeper.
Excellent.
So you look after aquatic animals.
Is this something you had done before, or is it totally?
I'd always I say always, but for years I'd kept tropical fish as an interest. Again, keeping that little bit of nature in your room, like these plants we've got around us now. It's a similar sort of thing. But when I was doing the studying and that just sort of gelled together, and I really enjoyed that time. It was good. You were forever taking, we'd have groups come and visit. You'd take them on rock pool rambles, and like you got kids from like inner London
never seen the sea before.
And don't know what a crab is.
Yeah.
And that's no disrespect to them, but it's a completely different environment.
Yeah, for sure.
And getting people to just have a look at that is quite interesting, and trying to get cultivate that interest in them for just having a little awareness of what's around them, and appreciate that what might not be on your doorstep is worthy of your attention and possibly looking after.
And that stoke that you have is super, super important for being able to share that, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the point of doing things. Like I don't think you should have for example, an aquarium without that kind of trying to get that messaging out in some way.
Definitely.
I'd say it's a must really that to legitimize what you're doing, because often like in aquariums people are like, oh, is it right keeping these fish and all that? It's like, well, I can see your point, but equally, do you have the same point of view about the thousands of tons of fish that are caught every day? Like it's fraction of what's in those nets is in those tanks, and it's live. And so there's pros and cons on both sides. I think particularly for younger children, seeing a real animal is impactful.
I have this same sort of contradiction in my head with zoos.
Yeah, same.
And that's the same thing, isn't it? You're keeping an animal that otherwise wouldn't necessarily be there.
Yeah.
However, you're also saving thousands of animals by people seeing them,
and having an interest in it,
and having an interest in it.
You're talking about some random animal halfway around the world.
Yeah. And the research that goes on with them and stuff like that.
Yeah,
as well,
there's a lot that needs to be done, and I think part of that comes from this utopic idea that the general public seem to have about the wild.
Is it should be in the wild?
Like I've always said this, like from a zoo aquarium point of view, that imagine an alien came and took you out of your world.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, fantastic! Right, let's do a bit of research. Right, all right. So we'll give him a spear, and there's a hole in that cliff. He can live in that and catch his own food. He's going to be well happy. It's like, no thanks, HD TV and an oven. Our natural environment means nothing to us anymore, and we can't live in it. Most people, most people couldn't survive a month in the wild, myself included.
However, pretty much everyone you speak to will tell you how much the zoo nature does their mental, physical health.
But but it's a dangerous and aggressive place. And I think so. Sometimes that is, it's like the lobsters where I work now. They've got some display animals, and people are like, "Oh, do you let them go?" And it's like, do you know there's 1 million lobster pots around Cornwall? It's like, what do you think they're going to go and do? Live with the Little Mermaid and have a lovely life? It's like, no. So when we, like you say, when we get into those debates, I have the absolutely, yes, everything should be wild. It should be free. But that requires a slightly different world for those things to exist in than we currently have.
Yeah. So just going back to the Blue Reef Aquarium.
Yeah.
And you've come to the end of that slot, and something's come up.
Part of that was driven by the fact, like I said, our second kid arrived around, I'd been there a few years, I was studying, and it made sense for me at that particular time to be the primary carer for the kids.
Yeah.
So that's part of the driver for why I left that job. But then, 12 months later, you're thinking, oh, this is all settled. One of them's at school. You can get the other one into nursery. And then it just so happened a job popped up at the National Lobster Hatchery in Padstow, which was a sort of bit of everything I wanted. So I developed all the aquatic husbandry skills of keeping animals and, to a professional level. But this job offered the opportunity to put something back. And that was really key in that shift for me, because we basically we're in the business of releasing baby lobsters into the sea.
Going to get onto that.
Yeah, and that's that element, that direct conservation, using the skills I had, was like, this all sounds pretty good to me. So I applied. I was lucky enough to get the job, obviously based on all the other experiences and whatnot. And and I've been there 13 years in January.
Is it that long? Goodness me.
It's extraordinary.
Time flies.
Yeah.
So for those who don't know about the National Lobster Hatchery in Padstow, tell us about it.
Okay, so this year is the National Lobster Hatchery's 25th birthday, so it's been going quite some time before I was there, obviously. And at its core, it is trying to improve sustainability of lobster fishing. That is how it was begun. And it started, the guy who set the place up was Chief Sea Fisheries Officer for Cornwall at the time. So basically overseeing the regulation and enforcement of fishing rules in Cornwall. And there was I wouldn't say a drastic decline, but a notable small trend down on lobsters. And he was very aware that in Scandinavia, around Norway and Denmark and Sweden and that area of the North Sea and stuff, that their lobster stock had basically crashed in the 70s, late 70s, and despite all efforts, had not recovered. So that was to him, we probably need to develop skills to try and head that off if that was to happen here. Because lobsters are massively economically important to particularly the inshore, less impactful fishing boats, if you will. It's their bread and butter. They catch, a few crabs and all that, but lobsters are worth good money. So to keep that industry and that community going, he was like, right, we need to set up this and learn. So a lot of the learning, I happened to walk in on 10 years after they'd set up and was carrying it on. But I think where it's become much more than, we're not just supplementing fishing. Lobsters were chosen as well as the economic impact, but for the environmental impact, they're like caretakers of the seabed. So they'll eat the dead and dying. They'll eat even worse than that comes out the other end of other animals, and they keep species in check that would otherwise have a detrimental effect on the sea with regards to its supplying food for people. Like sea urchins, for example, love eating kelp and seaweed. A lot of the fish we eat depend on those areas as juveniles.
Oh, okay.
So like all your pollock and stuff like sea bass and that, when they're like a few inches long, they're in all that kelp and hiding and staying out of the way. If lobsters were gone, that environment would disappear.
Interesting.
A few years later, our fish stocks would take a pretty hefty nosedive. And
so almost like the sort of the wolf in the UK.
Yeah,
so
it's that whole concept, that Yellowstone concept of keeping everything in balance, and I think that was a super important thing for me to want to be involved in, and what I think is great about the National Lobster Hatchery is that as a conservation organization, nobody's prohibiting anything. You were working with the fishermen, and because they, I don't believe most fishermen out there, like the pirate sort of branding that they seem to get in the media and whatnot. They've got kids, they've got mortgages on boats and houses. They don't want to be catching the last of anything either. So it's been great working in that element as well. When I first was approaching fishermen about, if you get any egg carrying lobsters, can you give us a shout? And this was before that's commercially banned now. You can't land. We'll get into that later. But at the time it was like, yeah, can you? And they were like, oh, but you work at that conservation place, don't you? And it's like, but you're a fisherman. Like we both want more fish in the sea.
Yeah.
How can we not work together on that?
That makes perfect sense.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like, nobody, you can't judge other people, and fishermen have a job to do. They I think generally have a bad rap, but as roughly speaking, as a species, 25% of what we eat comes out of the sea.
Right.
So we should all be vestedly interested in looking after that and be much more outraged by other profiting companies that are trying to not help that. I think, we can't, as our population grows, the sea cannot simultaneously be our larder and our rubbish dump. It's not going to work
doesn't
for long.
Make sense, does
no,
it?
There's more and more pressure on the food element, and you're knocking that back all the time with, the dumping of whatever. They're diametrically opposed points, and so I reckon relatively soon people are going to have to decide, well, what is it? A tip or a larder?
Yeah.
And I think in this modern world, you can't just say, oh, I'll let it just be the sea. But I think looking at it from a food source point of view leads more of us towards caring for that.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's why, and that's part of the messaging is what we're getting out through the Lobster Hatchery.
So you're all about the message of sustainability.
Sustainability.
But what do you actually do there?
So mechanically,
go through the process from. You say you don't use.
We don't breed lobsters.
You don't breed lobsters.
We don't breed them. So the fishermen bring us in egg carrying lobsters.
Okay. These are just caught the same way.
Yeah, same way. They're just fishing.
They just look different.
They're fishing, and under the tail of a lobster, when they're carrying eggs, it's full. You can see them. They're just full of eggs.
Yeah.
I should have brought a picture to show you. Never mind.
Maybe
But yeah,
we'll be
so
able to
like
put
quite
one up or
obviously
something.
under the tail, it's full of eggs. And so since, forgive me on the detailing, I want to say 2016, it's been illegal to commercially land egg carrying lobsters in England. So they should be returned to the sea. So we have now a tag system where I'm allowed to distribute tags to fishermen that they can then put around the claw of a lobster. So if the powers that be board their vessel,
They know that.
they know.
What,
Oh no,
so
that egg carrying lobster is for the hatchery.
why would they carry egg carrying lobsters anyway?
Because because it's not believed that all fishermen return them to the sea. So things like what's called scrubbing. So some fishermen will scrub eggs off lobsters so they can land them because the law states carrying eggs.
Right.
But it's not carrying eggs anymore.
Okay. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Whereas.
So it's there's not any value in the eggs or anything. Not like
it's just about they want to land that
right,
fish.
Okay. Yeah.
You know, there are many reasons.
So
but
you've got
most fishermen are not doing that. I don't want. This is what I'm saying. You know.
Yeah. So you've got your legally bought in
egg carrying lobsters.
lobster.
Then they go into our tank. So we have a receiving tank for all the new mothers, where they'll go into a tank that is seasonally matched with the sea. So you don't want to accelerate the development of their eggs. So if they come in the summer, it'll be quite warm. If they come in the winter, it'll be ebbing. We get it down to 9 degrees. So you're just keeping them in that natural developmental window of the egg. And then when their eggs go from quite a jet black, they look like blackberries. That's why they're called buried hens.
Okay.
But they go red in the last few weeks of their development. Then we put them into the hatching tanks where we just leave them to it. They know what they're doing with their eggs better than we do. And the babies hatch off in these tanks and then we collect them all up. So the babies are attracted to light. So when they first hatch in the sea, they rise up to where all the other plankton is and start feeding, doing their thing. In the hatchery, we use a little light in the corner of the tank that they swim towards, and then whoop, they get sucked out through the return pipe to the filter. Sorry, microphone. The return pipe to the filter, and there's a break in that where there's a little collection vessel. So every morning we go in, there are the babies, move them into an on-growing vessel where they'll spend the next 2 weeks. And then after that, they start to in that time, they'll have shed their skin or their shell 3 times. And then on that 4th shed of the shell, the first time in their life, about 2 and a bit weeks old, they look like a proper mini lobster.
Okay.
So then we transfer them.
How big are they at this stage?
They're about a couple of centimeters total length, like stretched out claws.
Yeah.
Tiny little things. But that's the point in their life where they're starting to get ready to head to the seabed. So then we'll keep them for another week or 2 in these upwelling tanks we have called aqua hives. They're basically just a full, like sectioned off trays that you stack up with lobsters in. It's like an apartment building, if you will. Stack them up, you can end up with 3,000 juvenile lobsters in one tube. And then after another, say a week or 2 after we've transferred them into that, we go out to sea and are released, and that's the natural time in their life where they're looking for the seabed. Now, the reason we're doing that is because those little juvenile lobsters, like I said, are wanting to be on the seabed. They're what we call benthic at that stage. So they want to go down and live on the seabed, and they'll find little hidey holes and rocks to go under and little crevices. Whereas in their first few weeks of life is where most lobsters are lost. Okay. So from hatching, settling on the seabed, it's thought 99% of lobsters are eaten before they even get there.
So that's why the lobster hatchery is there, to help give them a leg up.
Yeah, it's one of our taglines, just giving Mother Nature a helping hand.
Perfect.
And you're just trying to get a few more of those babies that would just be obliterated should a sardine shoal come past. They're like living fish food, I refer to them as. And I know that's not nice for the babies you're looking after, but they are living fish food. So everything, they're just part of the plankton. So everything from basking sharks to sardines and jellyfish are picking them off. So the attrition over those first couple of weeks of their life, virtually none of them reach the seabed. So just getting a few more there goes a long way to helping shore up the population around Cornwall.
So how many do you have in how many egg carrying
lobsters.
lobsters
So
do you have at a time?
we have usually about somewhere around 30 at different stages of their development, but we try and keep the number good in the season. So lobsters don't, there's a peak season
Which
for
is
them
when?
in early, like late spring, early summer. So about
Okay.
May
Right.
is we're going hell for leather.
Hell for leather.
It's
Hell for
it's
lobster.
almost like it's almost overwhelming how many can be in and the work that's involved. And then now it's starting to ebb off into late summer, and then by October there'll be a couple left that.
So what goes on between October and May again then?
Servicing all the systems, getting all the pumps done, making sure the visitor centre is back up to scratch after a hard season, and doing all that maintenance and preparing for the next season, really.
Amazing.
But yeah, in a nutshell, that's why we do what we do,
So you do a whole lot more than that as well, don't you? Because you've got obviously the lobster hatchery that going on, but also you do a lot of educational stuff, don't you?
Yeah. So like I said, we've got our visitor centre where people can come and see the work, basically the hatchery,
and people can come in and watch the different stages.
Yeah. So like the hatchery is just behind glass, and so people can see all what we do. And then there's a bit of a story about that takes you through a bit of Cornish coastal wildlife and trying to show kids what they might see if they go rock pooling and how to do that nicely, and then a bit of fishing history and just trying to get that idea of sustainability forward. The idea, the concept itself is referred to in the industry as stock enhancement. So you're making a natural stock of something more robust. And I've always said, if I won the lottery, I'd fill the quay down in Padstow with buildings doing sea bass and everything. This concept of getting marine organisms that we eat to recruit better to their population by getting them through their larval phases is just, it's something it's fun, it's interesting, and
that's the problem impact, though, is that larval stage.
Yeah. That's where most of everything out there is lost.
That's fascinating.
You think a single lobster, for example, on average has about 10,000 eggs.
Okay.
So roughly two clutches of eggs will get one or two babies to the bottom. So out of one female, basically, would be very lucky if one of her babies hits the seabed at a month old.
Wow. What about when the hatchery is involved?
Well, so going off the same hen where one might reach the seabed, we'd probably get about a few hundred, 500 down off her.
Okay.
So the increase of survival of her batch of eggs that year is exponentially more than it would be naturally.
That's incredible.
So she's basically done her reproduction for her life in one season. And it's just helping them through. The same, like say, you could do the same thing. Sea bass, some years you can catch them, some years you can't catch them. It's like, well, sea bass, they farm them all over the world, so their life cycles are known quantity. Where instead of putting them into grow-on ponds when they get to like a few inches long and can swim, chuck a few million into the sea.
Makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah.
You always get those few people that they I think I call them professional critics, where they're like, well, what's the effect of all this? Is it responsible to release all these? And it's like, the questions don't arise about the take.
Yeah.
It's like, well, hang on, is it not more prevalent as to what is the population impact of removing X thousand tons of a certain animal every year? But when someone's trying to rectify that, the questions are, oh, should you be doing this, or is it responsible? And it's like, at the moment, yeah, because we've done, we work with very clever people at Exeter University and stuff as well, and other universities, that Plymouth University, and and who help us figure out some of the science. And we've had a chap called Charlie Ellis. He's a PhD doctor of lobsters, basically, and he's worked for us for a few years. He's worked for Exeter, and his work over the last few years has been looking at the impact of hatcheries. And so what impact do we have on the genetic diversity of the population? Because that batch of babies is a lot more survived that year. And basically, long story short, you could not really very much, if any.
Yeah.
You know, given the relatedness of all the other lobsters and the variability of their genetics, that until we, you know, if we were releasing 10 million lobsters a year, maybe there's something to start having a good think about, but not at the moment.
So what are the challenges that you face?
The biggest challenge we face is water pollution. The River Camel, where the hatchery is based, or on the estuary side of the River Camel, just near the Padstow Harbour, is I mean, like most of Cornwall, I think the rivers. I just have a glance next time you're near a harbour. Where are the mussels and limpets growing on the wall anymore? Where are they?
They've gone.
Yeah. And so water pollution. Obviously, we're depending on drawing in seawater, and the amount of filtration it takes and the amount of work we have to do to make that water even possible for lobster babies to live in is scandalously worrying.
How does that translate to you filtering it and then putting them into dirty water after? Because your water, if you're filtering it so much, you're making it cleaner and then putting them into shitty water.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, it's questionable, but the main issues that the lobsters will face as a result of this is without going into too many technicalities about it, it basically makes them struggle to molt.
Right.
So, like, for example, insecticide that's used on the land, and again, it's part of an industry. You're not saying anyone's doing anything wrong, but the insecticide that's sprayed on the land to protect crops, as the way it works is to stop insects molting and breathing through their skin. So as that washes into the ocean, it has exactly the same effect on any larval invertebrate crustacean out there. So, and eventually it dissolves and just dilutes to a certain point. But, you know, this is the whole thing I was talking to you about earlier when we were talking, you know, can the sea provide us with all this food and simultaneously be dumped full of rubbish all the time? And, you know, I think eventually... Talk
me through the larder tip scenario.
Well, like this, we're talking about the impact of sewage overflow, heavy industry by the coast, you know, a lot of other stuff that can have a negative impact. And it's just as we put more pressure, as we're trying to draw more money out of that account of food, the bank account, if you will, that'll just give us more. Those impactors or those negative impactors have more, they're more prevalent because we're putting more pressure on the resource. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, go back 50 years.
I
remember when I'm from up north. Yeah, I remember a time when you couldn't go in the sea at Blackpool.
You don't shit in your fridge, do you?
This is it, you know. And this is why I think, you know, marine reserves and that kind of thing are a really good idea. And they are, you know, there's challenges there too, because, you know, if you want to set up like the government wants to establish a marine reserve where makes sense, that's your savings account, everything's left alone there, and the overspill goes around and everyone can you know, go about their fishing and all that other stuff. But what in reality to set up a marine reserve is happening, I feel. I might just point out at this point that this is my opinion and not that of the National Lobster Hatchery. But you're going, oh, that's a really good productive area of the sea. Brilliant. Right, let's protect that. And then you're always going to have opposition to that. Like, the fishermen will be like, hang on, whoa. Calm down. I've been fishing there all these years. And why are you shutting it now? Oh, because it's really healthy and productive. Right. Okay. So what would you do? What would I do in that situation? How do you remove that opposition to these marine reserves from industry? Build them where they don't fish. Simple as that. So create habitat, you know,
And there's a few wonderful reserves around the world.
And they're great.
Thriving.
They are thriving.
And because they're thriving, the outskirts are thriving too.
Yeah.
Which means that actually the places where people are fishing are starting to thrive and do better.
It will eventually happen, you know. you know, it's like you've just got to wait for that payback period. You know, like the farmers don't plant their crop and then the next morning they're going, "Where's my corn? Where's my corn?" It's like,
Takes
you know,
time.
it'll take time to develop, and then at the end of the day, you'll have a good business. But what I'm saying is that this is where the conservation and the fishing can work very well together, and should be more in tune with each other. That what people in marine conservation and what fishermen want is more fish, dependable, reliable sources of fish. Those fish need good environment to live in, to reproduce well, and you know, so yeah, it's that whole merry-go-round. And I think that, yeah, for me, the fishermen could be the biggest ally in marine conservation if they're included in those conversations.
Those conversations.
Well, it's like, you know, yeah.
Tell me, can we? Is a big one. This one. Can we sustainably and ethically put lobster on our plate?
Sustainably, yes. How do you kill a lobster is always going to be the big question. How do we kill a lobster? Now, I say, how do we kill a lobster? Because a lot of, there's been a lot of noise recently about lobsters. I don't know. I mean, me being in the industry, probably it's been more of a thing than it might be to people not in the industry. But a couple of years ago now, maybe nearly 2 years ago now, the lobsters were declared as a sentient being by the government. So they're self-aware. They can remember, you know, lobsters, for example, 2 male lobsters, if they get into a bit of argy-bargy and see each other a few weeks later, they remember each other, and the loser defers, and the guy who won the fight walks past. And
is it?
So they remember those social interactions and have these weird dynamics going on that, you know, like most things, you know, I've always found that not surprising. You know, even a fly doesn't fly into a bonfire because it knows it'll burn itself. You know, it's yes, so that is always a question, like, how do you kill a lobster? And that's, like I say, well, how do you kill a lobster is difficult because they don't really have a central brain like we do. So they have different collections of nerves, but they still then manage to exhibit all these characteristics that you would say that's quite an intelligent animal. So as we all, I'm sure, are aware, lobsters are usually just tossed in a pan of boiling water.
Yeah.
That is, you know, the debate on that is up for everyone to make their own decision on. I feel, you know, that how else can you kill a lobster? I mean, there are other things out there. Like there's somebody out there trying to promote this electrical stunning machine for lobsters. Which, would that work? I mean,
that would mean everyone would have to buy a stunning machine, was it?
Yes. But I mean, I don't know what research they've conducted on does that kill a lobster, like, or anything like that. But yeah, if it stuns them, you can, you know, I don't eat them, but if I was personally going to eat a lobster, I'd make sure it was nice and comfy. Lobsters like to be under. You can transport them out. They're fine out of water. I've found lobsters in cracks in the rocks at low tide, just sat waiting for them. So they're fine out of water. But make them, you know, just have a bit of respect for what, you know, you're going to do that. Just like, right, well, lobsters' winter temperatures, they can easily go down to 7, 8, even 6 degrees centigrade. So put them under a nice saltwater towel on a tray, bang them in your fridge, they'll cool down over a few hours. Then if you're going to eat them, I would do that from that state, because in the principle that from 6 degrees to boiling water, it's probably going to be dead before it comes round. But I'm sure people will be saying that's total rubbish, Ben. You know, but like I say, I'm no expert on the ethical side of how do you kill a lobster. Personally, I wouldn't bother. I think they bring too many benefits.
So sustainably, yes, but
sustainability, yes. Ethically, that's up to you.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, like, I think you can work on that, and balance certain things like that on your own. You know, we eat lots of animals, people, you know, but a cow is kind of like a person in the biological sense, that it's got a brain, a spine, and so we know that quickly knock it through the brain with a captive bolt, it's got you know.
Yeah.
But when it comes to something a bit more alien,
and a lobster is proper alien, isn't it?
Oh, mate, honestly, it's unbelievable. Like,
they're like dinosaurs, aren't they?
I had
They're
no idea when I started work at the Lobster Hatchery how this subject could entertain me for this length of time. Honestly, like, you say they're like dinosaurs. Yes, they are. They, like one of my favorite, like, bit about lobsters and the bits you learn about them. They taste with their feet, so they can find food, but they don't biologically age. So lobsters are no worse off at 70 as they were when they were 20.
What, like deterioration wise?
Doesn't happen.
So does that mean eating them at 6 years is the same as eating them when they're 60 years?
Kinda.
So
what do you mean?
They live to what age? If they were left to their own devices, what would they live to? 60, 70?
No, hundreds of years old.
For sure.
Yeah. Hundreds. Yeah. Like I say, there's no reason for a lobster to die from biological decay. There's no reason for it.
That's just blown me away.
Now, why don't we find 1,000-year-old 12-foot lobsters? Who's to say, given the size of the sea, that there aren't some of those out there? But the reality of a lobster's life is that periodically, and depending on its size, that can be anything between 6 months and 2-3 years, they eventually have to shed their shell to grow. And they grow the whole life. So if you've got a big old lobster, let's speculate, you've got like a 3-4 foot lobster, which is within the realms of what we know to have been caught in Cornwall over the last century.
How big? 3 foot?
4 foot. Yeah.
4 foot?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, massive. I mean, I would conservatively estimate something that size would be at least 200 years old. Where was I going? Yeah, so the shedding of the shell. So if you've got a massive lobster like that, and it has to shed its shell, when the lobster sheds its shell, it is soft. And I mean, it's like a wet leather chamois cloth for about 36 hours. And they start to re-harden and absorb calcium. And then when they're able to, because some of the first parts that re-harden are the mouth parts, they eat their old exoskeleton to reharvest the calcium.
That's clever.
But that's the danger zone though. So the bigger a lobster is, the fewer places you have to hide while you're soft.
Of course.
So eventually you'll be there, molted, sat on the seabed going, oh, they can't fit in any of these holes. A dogfish will be like,
oh, that looks nice, tasty.
And it can't even move really.
Yeah.
So they just lie and get eaten alive, I would imagine.
Oh.
Which is a very, but that is part of it. But yeah, in principle, if you had a nice fish tank with you could pass that lobster on to your great grandchildren in that,
That's incredible.
It's unbelievable. And not only just the size, it's like the fact that the female reproduction in lobsters is with them all their life. You've got like 100-year-old plus lobsters having the best babies of their life. It's crazy. Crazy. It is honestly like they've just been thrown here from somewhere else. They're so bizarre biologically.
Incredible. Yeah. So tell me, Ben, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope is that I think that, and as mentioned before about taking the kids rock pooling back years ago at Blue Reef and stuff, I think it's trying to hook into how do you keep that enthusiasm. For most kids, they're like interested in nature.
And then they find
But
music.
life beats it out of us, doesn't it? It's like, oh, I'd love to care about that, but the rent's gone up 300 quid this month.
Yeah.
And, the distractions of modern life. But it's how do you keep people invested in caring just enough to make decisions that they realize they have the power to, I'm not going to do that, or I'm going to choose this and drive those things. Because we do live in a market-driven world these days. Even at governmental level, if things are selling, that's what we're going to do. So it's like, I think you and I, before we started recording, we were talking about decisions and telling people, you can't, if you're telling people what to do, there's usually a bit of anger. Why are you telling me that? What makes you better than me? Whereas if you can get them
invested,
to show them how great something is and go, you can help with this.
Yeah. People love to be involved.
Yeah, they'd love to be involved, and rightly so. If we're all aware of things and we can help each other out, let's help each other out. And
yeah, totally.
And I think that hope is that kids are still interested in nature. And the challenge is, how do we get that through to adulthood?
Yeah.
How do we get people to still think, you know what? No, I'm sorry. Yeah, all right. I know you're going to add an extra 1% to my pension, but I'd rather that my kids could walk around in a forest and swim in the sea, rather than, worry about the other stuff, which, let's be honest, is all invented by our own society. We don't. The reality of the world is what we need to keep people focused on, and I think we're losing some of that tangibility. But there is hope. There is always hope.
There is hope. So we're going to move on to your evidence now. So you've brought along 4 pieces of evidence. I'm going to invite you to talk for a minute on each. Alex is over there with the bell. He's quite eager with the bell.
I like to ramble, so it's a good job we have the bell. He's quite eager with that bell, and he's mean with it. If you're halfway through a conversation, he'll bang that bell.
Round one. So your first piece of evidence is a book called End of the Line, and it's by Charles Clover.
Yes, this was one of the most impactful books I ever read in my life. Now, the guy is a journalist, and he just sort of through his life got involved in, covering certain stories. I think he wrote for The Independent for a long time and did other stuff, and he got into looking at fishing and what's involved in that, and it's basically just a very, very candid account of his point of view on how wasteful fishing became in that time, that we forget that even 50 years ago sustainability really didn't factor. There was plenty for everyone, but since then there is twice the amount of people on the planet, so we have to think about that a little more, and right on cue.
Happy with that?
Yeah.
He's, like I say, he's eager with it. So the next one is Shark Water, and it's a documentary by Rob Stewart.
Yeah, again, just another inspirational person who was as a youngster, was keen on diving and filming things in the sea, and basically brought the world's attention to one of the most extreme things ever, which is the shark fin trade, which is basically decimating the ocean. Sharks that sit at the top of the food web, they control, like lobsters we were talking about earlier, in certain ways, but everything below sharks depends on them to maintain a healthy population. And shark finning is cruel and wasteful and has no place in the modern world, I think. And he brought that to the world's attention. And it was very inspirational. Sadly, he's no longer with us. But I think he's left a permanent mark on the world.
Good timing. And that's available on Prime, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, Prime, and it's you'll find it's on. You can get the book anywhere, but I definitely recommend watching that.
And shark finning, that was a strange old story around that. That's interesting to look into. So your next one is The Secret Life of Lobsters by Trevor Corson.
Yeah, it's a great book. So when I started at the Lobster Hatchery, the manager at the time issued everyone with a copy of this book, and I was like, and I read it, and I was like mind blown. Just about how one, let's be honest, quite weird animal can be so interested and how it's affected societies all up and down the east coast of Canada and America, Cornwall, around the world, how these animals live and what they need from us, and just that whole, like we were talking about the immortality and all that stuff. All those facts first came to me through this mind-bending book, and then you're like doing a bit of follow-up on it. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Oh my God, this is crazy. We're swimming with aliens.
Yeah. I think out of all of the podcasts we've done so far, learning about lobsters, both before you came on and with you in the show this afternoon, has I've had so many moments where I've gone, what?
Well, it's like, it's just surreal, isn't it?
And right down to what they look like. So your next one, this is Captain Paul Watson Foundation, which is like a
conservation organization.
Conservation organization.
Yeah. So I think Paul Watson for me is been a constant inspiration. And personally, he comes, he's quite, I would say, quite a selfless person. He's all for the cause. He originally was the founder of Greenpeace, which was much more into, remember the seals and all that stuff back in the 80s. He was directly intervening in those hunts. Greenpeace became massive. They didn't want him anymore. He was a bit dangerous. So he set up Sea Shepherd. The history repeated itself. He got, the organization became so big, he became financial liability.
Yeah.
So they got rid of him again. And now he's set up his own Neptune's Navy. And he's some people don't agree with his methods, but I think he brings the conversation to the table.
Yeah.
And
what's that conversation he's bringing to the table?
Just he's bringing that we've got to stop this stuff. I'm not, not
so it's sort of a lot of campaigning and a lot.
Yeah, not getting stuck into the politics of it all and be like, whatever, this has got to stop.
Yeah.
And
worth having a look at that. I had a look at
the quick
website.
Glance at the Instagram. If you can get over the visceral reaction to a lot of what he's showing, you understand what's going on.
Sometimes that's important, though. Hey?
Yeah.
So we're going to move on to your top tips now. Same situation. We're going to give you a minute to talk about each. We've got Eager Alex on the bell there still.
Yeah.
So your first top tip.
Yeah.
Think about what you eat.
Yeah, I think for people, just think about the choices you make. It's like I say to my kids, you're making them a nice roast dinner on a Sunday, for example, and they're like pulling the face, like, man, it's a chicken there. Don't waste stuff. I think that was one thing Attenborough brought up at one point, who, again, inspirational to me. But one of his things was don't not have what you want, but don't waste stuff. Don't just leave your car in it. Don't just like cook so much meat that nobody can eat it. Don't waste stuff, and that goes a long way to helping us, become more sustainable. Just understand that the effort and what's required to provide that food for yourself,
and be thankful for it.
Yeah, exactly, and be thankful for it.
This is interesting because we've had this come up a couple of times, and I'm interested to know your thoughts on it. Is think about what you flush.
Well, yeah, think about what you flush, because we hear a lot about sewage spills, especially around Cornwall. Most of us spend time in the sea. Everyone's very aware of that. But on the other side of that is like, just think about what products you're buying. Like, I remember a few years ago, there was a product you could buy to stop your leavings in the toilet from smelling.
Yeah, what was that?
I can't remember.
Stinky thing that you sprayed or something. Yeah,
and it's like, what is in that?
Yeah.
Does anyone consult the water companies or what's possible to deal with before we just buy products from the supermarket and flush it down the toilet? And some of these chemicals will be, it's got a massive hazard sign on the back. Don't what does it say on the back of some like toilet cleaners? Lasting environmental impact, with a fish floating upside down and a black cross through it. But it's like, but where between someone thinking that's a good product to it being allowed where's the regulation in that?
Yeah, interesting. And the it's like going back to what you were saying about the pesticides, isn't it?
Yeah.
That you put them, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
To kill stuff.
Yeah.
To kill germs.
Yeah.
And a germ is just a small.
I always read about that with the germ. A lot of those adverts kills 99.99% of germs. It's like, well, that 0.01% that survives is going to be really tough.
Yeah. So this was an interesting one. I'm keen to know what you're saying with this. Wash cars at a car wash rather than at home.
Now, this is just a little personal. I don't want people to feel guilty about cleaning their car, but we're talking about little things people can do. And most grids lead to a river nearby. They don't generally all go to the sewer. So, be aware that if you're washing your car and there's soap and detergent everywhere, that's probably going to end up in a stream not far from you. And that has a detrimental impact. Some countries like Germany, it's illegal.
Okay.
You have to wash your car.
So that's going into the streams, it's going into the rivers, it's going into the water table, and eventually that's going into the sea.
Yeah,
so
directly.
That's almost worse than flushing it down the toilet where it's going. Well, not almost worse, but
it's definitely to be thought about. And again, I just don't. It's like, well, it's gone down the grid. It's dealt with.
Yeah.
but and to be fair, as consumers, should we even have to think about that?
Yeah.
But it should be that such, you know, if you want to make an immediate impact, I would advise that is quite a good one.
That's brilliant. So the next one, and I love this one. Tip your cap if you see someone trying to have a positive impact.
Yeah. So like, I think it's by default, most people's, again, I'm not excluding myself when I say most people, I'm people.
Yeah.
That it's quite easy to think like straight away off something. Oh, well, to try and understand what they're doing, usually we go into the critique. There'd be the critic of what's happening. Whereas, you know, someone's just trying to do something nice. You might, you know, even think it's necessary, but just, you know, acknowledge that someone's trying to.
That can go a long way, can't it? Yeah.
You know, that old saying goes around too much. You never know what people are dealing with these days anymore. But it doesn't take any effort to go, oh, nice one. You know, well done for trying. You know, I see where you're coming from. You know, I don't have to agree with your solution, but your motives are good. So all the best to you. You know,
good on you. And your number 5 is be mindful of food miles.
Yes, food miles is an easy one. I mean, we're very lucky in Cornwall. You can go to the sheds everywhere with farmers' produce in. You can buy if you want. I mean, but even you go to the supermarket, because most of us haven't got time to traipse around to the sheds in the back lanes of St. Evil and stuff to find veg. But, you know, just have a glance, you know, look at, just be aware of where your food comes from. I think, again, we've mentioned earlier that, you know, the most ridiculous scenario of this is that I've seen personally was shrimp caught in the North Atlantic, shipped to Thailand to be shelled, they were sent somewhere else in Eastern Europe to be packaged, and then back to the UK to be sold.
Yeah.
I mean, that's mental.
And
like,
I was saying,
not only is it mental environmentally, but how is it even profitable to do that?
Well, exactly. I was saying to you,
know
about
why
someone
somewhere along the line is getting really exploited.
I was saying to you about the apples, wasn't it? They were sending apples from the UK to, I think, South Africa to be sprayed with some kind of wax to preserve them longer, and then brought back to the UK for.
How is that even a thing? You know, so it's like, you don't have to find the solution, but just ask the seller the question now and then. Like, if you go to a restaurant, oh, where'd you get your fish from? What? Like, just who'd you buy it off? Because, you know, all those wholesalers around Cornwall have all got sustainability messages and things they're doing on their websites that the restaurant will be buying from. So you're not going to try and find John's boat down in Penzance. That's, you know, not that level of detail, but, you know, which wholesalers still sold you this, you know?
And also we had Pete the Chip on a couple of weeks ago, and he talked of the Wildlife Trust's Good Fish Guide.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of things like that where you can go and have a look which fish are sustainable, which fish aren't, etc., etc.
Yeah.
So.
And I think, do you remember there was a thing a few years ago? Hugh Fernley Whittenstall, he did a thing. It was called the Big Fish Fight,
right?
And it was all about that. And you've got. This is where I'm talking about with sustainability, and that everyone having the same approach can't always work. So I think one of the things he promoted was mackerel are very underrated in this country, and we should perhaps eat more of them. 6 months later, it was like,
don't eat anymore.
It's like this. We don't, you know. And I think, you know, some of that is the trade. You know, trading standards these days require you to specify what fish you're selling. How many species of marine fish do the British public generally know? Cod had it.
5.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But
they bring in 50 different types of fish down.
So I don't think all that's just the customers saying, I don't know, I'm not going to try that. It's that you have to state what fish you're selling.
Yeah.
And you put, you know, something random, people, I don't even know what that is. So yeah.
So we had there we go. I've now lost my last one. Tell us how we can support you.
What, me personally? Send checks to no
crypto.
No, but the Lobster Hatchery, it's a charity, so you know, like, come and have a look. If you're in the area, come and have a look. But we also have plenty of content on YouTube. You know, there's plenty of ways to support what we're doing. And, you know, all our money is spent on doing the work. You know, there's no one making profit out of the National Lobster Hatchery. It's all to be reinvested in trying to spread the word and come up with more facilities where we could have another hatchery on the south coast and try and do more. Look at crabs. I don't know how many fishermen but they'll all tell you crab have gone.
Yeah.
Why is up for debate. But get some crabs looked at. In this whole.
Is that on the cards for another?
It's something we're looking at. Yeah. So this
yeah.
autumn we've got what we call a feasibility study, looking on a small scale. Can we apply similar techniques to the crab? And
excellent.
What we can do about that. But yeah, I think for the lobster hatchery, the best thing people could do is either come and see what we're doing, or at least visit our website and have a read.
So website lobsterhatchery.com
.co.uk. Yeah, and on our the Lobster Hatchery's social media handles is at Padstow Lobster.
And that's Instagram, Facebook.
Yeah, and
YouTube,
TikTok as well, I believe.
TikTok.
The youngsters at the hatchery are putting me on TikTok.
Yeah.
Which is going down really well.
Brilliant. You're just sitting there flicking little.
Yeah, no, I've already been told off by my kids who are now 14 and 16 going, Dad, why are you on TikTok?
Yeah.
I don't know how that happened.
Amazing. So what's one thing that we can all start doing today to create a better tomorrow and help us find a greener room?
I just think, just be a little nicer to each other, and just understand that, I think people aren't inherently bad. Just because you don't know circumstances, you don't know what's going on, just, and if you can help somebody, point them in the right directions nicely. That's all it is. Just there's no judgment. Just pass on what you think is right without the expectation that it is right.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? This is what I do because I feel this is right. Doesn't mean that you should or anyone else should, but you've got your own sense of what's right in the world. And I think as long as we're coming from what we believe to be true, then that's all we can do.
Well, Ben, I could literally chat to you all day long, and I'm mind blown by some of those things about the
It's been really good, man. Honestly, I've really enjoyed putting all that together in my brain in like a linear formation. It's usually like. So
thank you so much for what you're doing for the planet. Thank you so much for what you're doing for the people, and thank you very much for coming on the show this afternoon.
My pleasure. Brilliant, mate. Thanks very much.
That's it for this episode of Searching for a Greener Room. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Let us know what you think, who you'd like to hear from, any topics you want us to cover. Drop us a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode. See you next time.